He came from nothing, an outcast left for dead on the harsh Mongolian steppe. Yet, he would rise to build the largest contiguous land empire in history. This is a story of Genghis Khan, a name that echoes through centuries, often misunderstood as just a brutal conqueror. But his life was far more complex, a saga of survival, genius, and a vision that would forever change the world. Born around 1162 and named Temujin, his early life was a brutal lesson in survival. His father, a minor tribal chief, was poisoned by a rival clan when Temujin was just a boy. His own tribe, fearing the burden of a widow and her children, abandoned them. Cast out, Temujin's family was forced to forage for roots and hunt small animals to stay alive. This period of extreme hardship forged an unbreakable will within him. He was captured by the very clan that had abandoned his family, forced to wear a wooden collar, like an animal. But even in chains, his spirit refused to break. He escaped, a daring feat that began to build his reputation as a man of extraordinary resilience and cunning. In the chaotic world of 12th century Mongolia, loyalty was a fleeting commodity. The steppe was a patchwork of warring tribes, constantly raiding and betraying one another. Temujin understood that to survive, let alone thrive, he needed allies. It began by re-establishing a connection with his father's sworn brother, Togrul, the powerful leader of the Karaite tribe. He also forged a crucial bond with a childhood friend, Gamuka, who became his enda, or blood brother. Together, they formed a formidable force. One of their first major victories was rescuing Temujin's wife, Bert, who had been kidnapped by the Merkit tribe. This successful rescue mission wasn't just a personal victory. It was a powerful statement that spread his name across the steppes, attracting more followers to his banner. He was seen as a leader who delivered on his promises and protected his own. But the alliance with Gamuka was destined to crumble. While both were brilliant leaders, their philosophies clashed. Gamuka favored the traditional aristocratic system, where power was inherited. Temujin, shaped by his own meritocratic rise, believed in promoting people based on skill and loyalty, not their bloodline. This fundamental difference created a rift that grew into open rivalry. The conflict between the two blood brothers became a war for the soul of the Mongol people. After a series of complex battles and shifting alliances, Temujin emerged victorious. Gamuka was eventually captured and, according to legend, requested an honorable death without the shedding of blood. A request Temujin granted. With his main rival gone, Temujin systematically defeated the remaining Tribsta, Tatars, the Kuritas, the Namans. By 1206, he had achieved the impossible. He had united the fragmented, warring Mongol tribes into a single, disciplined nation. At a grand assembly, or Kurultai, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. This wasn't just a new title. It was the birth of a new identity for his people. He was no longer just a tribal chief. He was the leader of the Mongols. Genghis Khan's military genius is legendary, and for good reason. He transformed the Mongol horde from a chaotic collection of horsemen into one of the most sophisticated and effective fighting forces the world had ever seen. The core of his army was its cavalry. Mongol warriors were masters of the composite bow, able to shoot with deadly accuracy while riding at a full gallop. Their endurance was astounding, capable of covering vast distances with incredible speed. But it was strategy, not just strength, that made them unstoppable. Genghis Khan was a master of psychological warfare. Before a siege, his emissaries would offer a choice: surrender and be spared, or resist and be annihilated. He often used feigned retreats to lure enemy armies into well-laid ambushes, a tactic that proved devastatingly effective time and again. He also organized his army based on a decimal system units of 10, 1,000, and 10,000, which allowed for precise command, control, and rapid communication on the battlefield, using a system of flags and horns. He readily adopted new technologies, incorporating siege engineers and catapults from the empires he conquered to overcome fortified cities, a weakness of traditional nomadic armies. With his unified nation and disciplined army, Genghis Khan looked beyond the steppe. His first major campaigns were against the Western Xia and the Jin dynasty in northern China. These were not mere raids. They were calculated wars of conquest. The Mongol armies swept through fortified cities and vast territories, adapting their tactics from open-field cavalry charges to complex siege warfare. The expansion then turned westward, sparked by a diplomatic incident. The Shah of the Khwarezmian Empire made a fatal mistake. He executed Mongol ambassadors sent to establish trade routes. For Genghis Khan, this was an unforgivable insult. The resulting invasion was a whirlwind of destruction. Cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, centers of Islamic culture and learning, were razed. The Mongol onslaught was terrifyingly swift and brutal, a deliberate strategy to crush the enemy's will to resist. In a few short years, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. Genghis Khan had created an empire that dwarfed that of Alexander the Great or the Romans. But to see Genghis Khan as only a destroyer is to miss half the story. He was also a brilliant administrator and a visionary statesman. Once a territory was conquered, the chaos of war was replaced by an iron-fisted but surprisingly progressive order known as the Mongol Peace. He established a written legal code for his people, the Yasa, which, among other things, outlawed kidnapping women, theft, and adultery, and granted diplomatic immunity to foreign ambassadors. One of his most revolutionary policies was the promotion of absolute religious freedom. Genghis Khan himself was a Tengarist, but he understood that a multi-ethnic, multi-religious empire could only be held together by tolerance. Christians, Muslims, and Buddhists were all free to practice their faith without persecution, a concept almost unheard of in the 13th century. He also created the Yam, an incredibly efficient postal and relay station system. This network of riders and stations allowed messages and goods to travel across the vast empire with unprecedented speed, facilitating communication, trade, and intelligence gathering. He standardized weights and measures and encouraged trade along the Silk Road, which flourished under the security of Mongol rule, connecting east and west like never before. He didn't just conquer lands, he created the infrastructure to rule them effectively. Genghis Khan passed away in 1227 during a campaign against the Western Shah. The exact cause of his death and the location of his burial remain one of history's great mysteries, deliberately hidden to prevent his tomb from being but his legacy was secure. He had laid the foundation for an empire that his sons and grandsons, like Gedai, Kublai, and Hulagu, would expand even further, eventually reaching from Poland to Korea. The Mongol Empire ultimately fractured, but its impact was permanent. It had violently reshaped the political map of Eurasia, but it had also cross-pollinated cultures on a massive scale. Gunpowder, the compass, and printing from the east made their way to the west. While Western science and culture traveled eastward, the empire Genghis Khan built was born of violence, but it also created a period of unprecedented global connection. From an abandoned child to the ruler of a world empire, Genghis Khan's life is a testament to the power of will, strategy, and vision. He was a ruthless conqueror, a brilliant general, and a surprisingly innovative ruler. His story is not just a tale of conquest, but a story of how one individual can rise from the depths of despair to irrevocably change the course of human history.